You are watching Pace TV, your community TV station.
Let me ask you now, the concept of delightful. How did this come around?
Okay, well, I retired about five years ago.
Okay.
And at one stage I was in Kingston, but I felt a little suffocated in the city and had this desire to come back to the country.
Okay.
Because essentially I was born here. I've been all over, I've visited about 40 different countries in the world. And I've lived all over Jamaica. I lived in Montego Bay, I lived in Mandeville, I lived in Amity Hall, in St. Catherine, you know. So I lived practically all over Jamaica. But there's no place in Jamaica or anywhere in the world that I've traveled that meant as much to me as this same area where I was born.
Okay.
And I watched the development of this area. And, you know, the area was essentially developed by a lot of these returning residents that came back. When I was a little boy growing up, if you traveled all the way from Black River to probably Lettids, you wouldn't even see 20 zinc houses. Okay, the roads were like donkey tracks.
Okay.
You know, but after most people had the opportunity to migrate to England, most of them migrated in the late 50s and the early 60s, and they predominantly left after independence, because we were all British citizens, and the British afforded them the opportunity to migrate if they wanted to. So a substantial amount of them graduated. So most of the development that has taken place here, well, Alpart to some extent impacted on the development. But I would say in terms of physical development in housing and all that sort of thing, and all those beautiful homes that you see all over the place here were all mostly built by returning residents. These are people who left here probably 56 to 60 after 62. In England, when they went there, they were able to deposit to buy a home for 2,500, which naturally they didn't have any pounds, which naturally they didn't have enough money to buy it.
That's right.
So they would deposit £200, and they paid on the house for over a 30-year period. During that 30-year period, because of inflation, some of those homes were sold for up to 450 to £500,000.
Wonderful.
So when these people retired, they had a lump sum of money from the equity that they had in their homes.
That's right.
Because they would have paid it off already. They would come back to Jamaica. They would spend £100,000 or £150,000, buy a nice plot of land, some of them family lands, and they would build mansions.
Right.
So a lot of the mansions that you see around here were built by the returning residents that came back.
So in essence, you are one of them because you have been all over the world and now you're returning to this area. You developed Delightful.
Yes, well, the Delightful came about, you know, I started to come back to St. Elizabeth about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And we acquired a piece of land up by Monroe, which overlooks the plains of St. Elizabeth and overlooks the sea.
Okay.
Up there is wonderful. The climate is beautiful. The wind is lovely. But I remember that our family had this bit of land here, and which we have been associated with for the past over 40 years.
Okay.
And we didn't do anything about it. And finally I decided to come and take a look at it. When I came and looked at it, it was all in bushes and a lot of grass, and I could hardly walk through it.
Yeah.
But before I got here, I stopped over in Mandeville, where I rented a house in transition to St. Elizabeth. And while I was in the complex, I started to find something to do, and then I started to go around and cut little plants that were indigenous to the Mandeville area and the St. Elizabeth area, and we started to plant them. Okay. So
in the
apartment complex, yes. And we ended up with about 1,900 plants.
In the apartment
Yes,
complex?
I planted it in the apartment
More
complex.
plants than people.
More plants than people in the apartment complex. And after I planted them and they start growing out now, I was wondering what to do with them, whether I should sell them. So I came back down here and looked at the place, and then we cleaned it up. And, before we cleaned it up, I brought my wife here and I asked her if she liked the place. She laughed at me and asked me.
It was flat. There was nothing here.
She laughed at me. She laughed at me.
Did you laugh also, Susan?
when he said that he's planting it up and I first came here, all I saw from as far as my eyes could see was just red dirt. I'm like, what is he talking about? This isn't a garden, this is dirt.
Yes, but she saw the dirt, but she didn't see the wilderness that we had to clean down, So she laughed at me and we went up to Monroe and we looked back at this place, that we're going to build on. So finally, I got some men and I cleaned up the place. And about 3 weeks after, I took down the plants, sneaked all the plants out of the apartment complex.
How many plants?
1,900.
1,900 plants.
Bought a little van and I chucked them down here. So these were some of the first plants that you see around bordering the trees.
Okay.
So I started out by bordering the trees with the plants. If you look at the Naisberg tree over there, you'll see it bordered with the plants, and the mango trees and the pimento trees, and all of them were bordered out with those trees, including the ones that you're looking at behind us. Then I looked at this little area here, and I realized that it would make a natural greenhouse.
That's right.
So it had the right amount of shade. Didn't have had breeze coming through, very cool. So I decided to buy the plastic bags, and I filled them up with earth. The road that you see out there, I excavated the road and took all the surface soil and filled all these areas here. And in no time I must have potted over 15,000 plants.
15,000
plants.
Wow.
So around this whole place, we have over 19,000 plants planted here.
Wow. What kind of acreage you have?
This part is 5 acres, and around the back that you went to a while ago is another 1.5 acres. So it's approximately 6.5 acres of land. Okay? And but every plant that you see here, I propagate them myself.
Wonderful.
And 90% of them are propagated from cuttings. And the whole layout, I laid out all the gardens. I hired men to dig the holes and to put them in and so on. But essentially we ended up with a kind of an organic garden. Because the only type of fertilizer we use here is organic fertilizer, which comes from chicken manure. Natural chicken manure. I started out with the chicken manure that I got from a schoolmate of mine who has a farm over there. He's called Hilton Robinson. He has a chicken farm, and he gave me the fowl manure. And other people around here also gave me the fowl manure. So I mixed the fowl manure inside with the dirt. And because the fowl manure is very, very strong. And in nitrogen and so on. And after it decomposed, the plants just took off. We have not sprayed any of these plants with any chemicals.
So this is all natural.
All natural. All natural. You'll see a lot of butterflies in here. You'll see a lot of lizards. You'll see a lot of caterpillars and
a real botanical
yes,
garden.
And you'll see hummingbirds and you see birds. You see all sorts of things in here, and you won't run into any chemical smell or anything. So it's not polluted with chemicals.
I noticed that a really nice road was cut from the main area coming in. Will you tell me a little bit about the development of Delightful?
I was consulted by some of my neighbors here and invited me to participate with them in building a road here. Well, during that time, they started to save up money for it. So most of them are in the States. And they started to save up money for it. And believe you me, they did exactly what they said they were going to do. They participated and they came up with their share of the money on the dot of time. So that road is truly a community project.
Wow.
That has been completed by community members participating in it, which I am very, very proud of.
That in itself is an inspiration.
Yeah.
Just on just to show how communities can really come together to better themselves. And I noticed that you have also added some plants coming in also.